Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Nathan Harlow, and today I've got a story for you that still sends shivers down my spine, even thinking about it. It's not a ghost story, not exactly, but it's about something that happened that summer that totally changed how I look at the quiet corners of the world. So, grab a snack, get comfy, because this one's a little unnerving. I've always been a small town kind of guy. You know, the type of place everyone knows everyone, who drives which beat-up truck, and which dog belongs to which family. After college, I did the classic move back home with the parents thing, just to save up some cash. And that's how I ended up living in their old farmhouse, nestled away on Birch Hollow Road. It's the kind of place that's just surrounded by miles of maple trees, and the silence at night is so deep, it almost hums. Pure, peaceful tranquility. Now, I'm a pretty rational person. I never really bought into hauntings or anything supernatural. You wouldn't catch me with a ghost hunting kit, let's just put it that way. And what happened that summer didn't magically turn me into a ghost believer, but it definitely opened my eyes to the idea that there are things happening in the shadows, things people do, that reason alone just can't explain. It all kicked off one Thursday night. My parents had headed off to Michigan to visit some relatives for the week, leaving me in charge of the homestead. I wasn't complaining, I actually kind of loved the solitude. This old house never felt creepy to me, it was just home. But that night, something shifted. Something definitely changed. I was working late on my laptop, headphones on, totally engrossed in a true crime podcast. You know, the usual late night vibe. When I finally peeled my eyes away from the screen and checked the clock, it was 12:43 a.m. My eyes were burning, you know that feeling. I was just about to call it a night, power everything down, when I noticed it, the sound. It wasn't loud at first, just a faint, almost delicate scraping. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere outside my window. My immediate thought, oh, it's just a branch. The wind had been pretty strong earlier, so a branch rubbing against the siding seemed like the most logical explanation. I figured, no big deal, and went back to my laptop, ready to shut it down. But then it came again. This time, it was slower, more deliberate, and it wasn't the wind. This sound was rhythmic, almost like something dragging its nails, yes, nails along the wood. My heart did a little flutter. I paused my podcast, took off my headphones, and sat absolutely still, straining to hear. The scratching continued, moving slowly from one end of the wall, past my window, to the other end, and then, silence, complete silence. I stood up slowly, trying to be as quiet as possible, and tiptoed over to the window. I peeked through the blinds, fully expecting to see a curious raccoon, or maybe a stray cat, trying to climb something, but there was nothing. The yard light cast its usual pale, familiar circle on the driveway, and it was empty. Just my dad's old pickup, sitting there all alone. I scanned the edge of the forest, the fence line, the towering maple trees. Everything was perfectly still, not a leaf rustling out of place. I told myself it was probably just an animal. Nathan, you just didn't see it. And with that rationalization, I went back to bed, trying to shake off the strange feeling. But the moment I lay down, I heard it again. This time, it was coming from the opposite wall, much closer to my headboard. That slow, deliberate drag of something sharp against the siding. My heart started thumping. There was no way I was just going to lie there. I got up again, grabbed my trusty flashlight from the nightstand, and decided to confront whatever it was. Stepping outside, the air was thick with humidity, and the woods behind the house were a wall of absolute blackness. I swept the light across the wall where I'd heard the sound, and that's when I saw them. Fresh lines in the paint, 4 narrow scratches, running perfectly parallel to each other. Too even to be random, too clean to be a tree branch. It was like something had deliberately drawn them there. The next morning, with the sun bright and warm, I went back out to examine them in daylight. The marks were still there, plain as day. And here's the kicker. They were about 6 feet off the ground. 6 feet. That's what really got to me. Too high for a raccoon. Far too perfect and deliberate for an accident. My mind started spinning. That night, I decided I wasn't going to sleep. I was going to stay up, intentionally. I was curious, yes, but also undeniably uneasy. I needed to catch whatever this was. I needed answers. Around 1 in the morning, right on cue, the scratching started again. This time, it was coming from the far end of the house, near the back porch. I knew that sound now. It was distinct. My heart was pounding, but I felt a strange resolve. I turned off my lamp, grabbed my flashlight again, and this time, I decided to go barefoot. I wanted to be as silent as possible, hoping to catch the animal in the act. The air smelled faintly of rain and rich, damp soil. The woods whispered with the incessant hum of insects, a sound that usually soothed me but now just amplified the tension. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps. They were crunching lightly in the gravel beside the porch, moving away from me. I froze. Those were not animal footsteps. They were human. My blood ran cold. Everything I thought I knew about my quiet, peaceful farmhouse, about my rational, logical world, suddenly felt like it was crumbling. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't an animal. This was something else entirely. I stood there, flashlight aimed at nothing, heart hammering against my ribs, listening to those footsteps recede into the darkness of the woods. My mind raced, trying to process what I had just heard, what I had just seen, who was out there, and what were they doing. It was a chilling moment, and it was just the beginning of a truly unsettling summer. If you want to hear more about what happened next, if you want to know what else I uncovered in that quiet farmhouse, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you ever had an experience like this, something that made you question everything. I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. The sound started around midnight. A soft scratching, like a branch dragging against the side of the house. I live at the edge of a pretty dense forest, so weird noises aren't exactly new. But this was different. It was rhythmic, almost deliberate. I ignored it for a while, tried to go back to sleep, but it just kept going. Finally, I grabbed a heavy flashlight from my nightstand and slipped out the back door. My parents were out of town for the week, and being alone always puts me a little on edge. The air was cold, and the scratching had stopped the second my hand touched the doorknob. Silence. Total, unnerving silence. I swung the flashlight in the direction of the sound, but the beam hit only trees and the narrow path that led into the forest. I stepped forward slowly, the gravel crunching under my feet. "Hello," I called out. My voice cracked in the quiet. No answer. Then I heard a faint whistle, almost musical, drifting from the tree line. It wasn't random. It was like someone trying to call a dog. My heart started hammering. I didn't own a dog. I turned to go back inside, trying not to panic. That's when I noticed the door. It was open. I was certain I'd shut it behind me. I ran inside and locked it, every muscle in my body buzzing with adrenaline. Once I was safe, or at least felt safe, I did what anyone would do. I turned on every single light in the house. I checked every room, every closet, under the beds, nothing. I was starting to feel a little foolish, telling myself I'd just forgotten to close the door properly, that the whistle was just the wind or some weird bird. When I finally went back to my bedroom, my heart sank. There, lying on the floor, just inside my window, was a small piece of bark, cleanly peeled, as if from a fresh branch. Etched into its surface were 4 parallel lines, carved with something sharp. The window was locked from the inside. There was no logical way for it to have gotten there. The next day, sleep-deprived and on edge, I called my friend Jesse. I tried to sound casual, but my voice was shaky. I told him what happened, and he laughed it off at first, saying I was just spooked from being alone. But he heard the fear in my voice and agreed to come stay over. That night, we sat up late playing video games, the volume turned down low. We were both waiting for something to happen. The house was quiet until about 2:15 a.m. Then came a soft thud from outside. It sounded like something had dropped onto the deck. Jesse muted the game, staring at me, his eyes wide. Another thud, and then the scratching again, louder this time, closer. It sounded like it was right outside my bedroom window. We grabbed our flashlights and, trying to act brave, we stepped out the back door together. The night was moonless, and the air was dead still. The sound came from above us this time. On the roof, we tilted our lights upward, and both beams caught something crouched at the edge of the roofline. It was a person, at least I think it was. The figure was impossibly thin, its limbs all wrong. Dark, stringy hair hung down over its face, and its arms were so long they could have reached the shingles below its knees. It wasn't moving, just crouching there, watching us. Then, its head tilted toward us in a jerky, unnatural motion, and for a split second, I saw the faint gleam of its eyes reflecting our flashlight beams. Jessie screamed, a raw, terrified sound. The thing reacted instantly. It scrambled backward over the peak of the roof with a speed that wasn't human. It was gone in a blink. We ran back inside, slammed and locked the doors, and immediately called the police. Jessie was hyperventilating, and I wasn't much better. When the officers arrived, they searched the roof and the surrounding woods but found nothing. No footprints, no disturbance, nothing. They told us it was probably some junkie or a prankster trying to scare us. But I could see in their faces they didn't really believe that either. After they left, Jessie's parents came and picked him up. He didn't want to stay, and I couldn't blame him. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. Every creak of the house made me jump. Around 4 in the morning, I heard the scratching again. This time it was faint, distant, as if from the attic. I didn't check. I couldn't. I just pulled the covers over my head and waited for the sun to come up. When my parents came back 3 days later, they found something new. The wall outside my bedroom window, the one directly below where we saw the creature, was covered in long scratches. They weren't random marks. They were in neat, deliberate rows, like someone had been counting something. The police came back. They took photos and filed a report for possible vandalism, but the case went nowhere. One of the officers stopped by a week later, off the record, to ask if anything else strange had happened. I lied and told him no. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. But the truth is, it never really stopped. Every now and then, on the nights when the wind dies completely and the house is totally quiet, I swear I can still hear that faint, rhythmic scratching. It's not coming from outside anymore. It's not coming from the roof. It's coming from above my bed, from inside the walls. And I'm starting to wonder what it's counting. Thanks for watching, everyone. This was a heavy one. If you have any similar experiences, share them in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Intro music fades in and out quickly. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got a story that's going to make you rethink those cheap motel stays. You know, the kind where you're just looking for a quick, anonymous night to break up a long drive. Yeah, me too. I used to think those old roadside inns were just quirky, maybe a little dusty, but mostly harmless. I never bought into that whole motels are haunted by memories, not ghosts thing. Until, that is, I found myself checking into a place called the Hillview Inn. I was on a cross-country work trip, pushing through that endless stretch between Denver and Kansas City, when fatigue just slammed into me. The Hillview Inn appeared like a mirage, a flickering neon sign, half its bulbs dead, promising clean rooms, cable TV vacancy. It looked like salvation. The parking lot was practically empty, just 2 cars, one so dusty you could literally write your name on it. Walking into the lobby, I was hit with this faint smell of mildew and coffee that had definitely seen better hours. Behind the desk sat an older woman, hair in a messy bun, her smile just a touch too stiff. "Just one night?" she asked, sliding a guest book my way. "Yep, just need a few hours of sleep," I mumbled back. She nodded, checked something off a list I couldn't quite see, and then handed me this tarnished brass key. It had a big, clunky tag that read Room 9. "End of the hall," she said, her voice oddly casual. "Don't mind the noises pipes rattle, sometimes when the wind picks up." Now, looking back, that line felt way too rehearsed, like she'd said it 1,000 times before. I should have paid more attention. The hallway stretched out, longer than it looked from the outside. The carpet was a faded floral nightmare, and my footsteps echoed unnervingly, even though it was carpeted. Most of the doors were missing numbers or had them peeling off. Room 9 was at the very end. Just as she'd said, the door groaned open, revealing a stale, thick air inside. That distinct old damp smell of unwashed curtains and closed-up spaces filled my nostrils. It was a standard motel room, small bed, nightstand, a chunky 90s TV bolted to a dresser. Nothing seemed out of place. I showered quickly, exhausted, and practically collapsed onto the bed, falling asleep almost instantly. Then, at precisely 2:47 a.m., I shot awake. Someone was knocking. Not on my door, though. It was coming from the wall. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, a pause, then 2 more. My heart instantly started hammering in my chest. The sound was definitely coming from the wall behind my bed, the one that should separate my room from, presumably, room 10. I sat there, frozen, listening intently. Silence. Then, I heard it. A faint whisper. At first I tried to convince myself it was just the wind whistling through a vent or something, but it was too clear, too distinctly human. I couldn't make out any specific words, but the tone, it was pleading. It sent a shiver down my spine. I leaned closer to the wall, pressing my ear against the cold surface. The voice came again, a little louder this time. Please. It was undeniably a woman's voice. I jerked back, my heart pounding like a drum. Hello, I blurted out, before I could even stop myself. The whisper cut off immediately. The silence that followed was somehow even worse than the voice. I quickly fumbled for the lamp, clicked it on, and grabbed my phone. 2:53 a.m. I didn't hear another sound after that, but there was no way I was turning off that light. I stayed awake, wide-eyed, until the first rays of dawn finally broke through the curtains. As soon as the sun was up, I packed my bag, went to the lobby, and set the key on the counter. The same old woman was there, her stiff smile back in place. Everything all right? She asked, almost too cheerfully. Yeah, I replied, hesitating. Hey, what's the deal with the room next to mine? I think someone was banging on the wall last night. Her smile flickered, just for a second. Next to you? Yeah, room 10. For a moment, she just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then she slowly shook her head. There is no room 10. I blinked, trying to process this. What I mean, I heard. She cut me off, her voice suddenly sharp, no longer casual. That room was sealed off years ago. Why? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She hesitated, then lowered her voice, almost conspiratorially. A young woman checked in one night, traveling alone, just like you. She never checked out. When the maid came to clean the next morning, she found the bed empty and the window open. Her car was still in the lot. They searched the woods, the highway, everywhere. Never found her. What happened to the room? I asked, completely unnerved now. They sealed it, she replied, her eyes briefly darting towards the hallway. The wall you heard, it's not a shared wall anymore. Just concrete. I let out a nervous laugh, waiting for her to smile again, to tell me it was all just a joke. She didn't. Her expression remained grim. Later that night, miles away in a different, much newer, much less creepy motel, my curiosity got the better of me. I pulled out my phone and looked up the Hillview Inn online. The first result was a grainy photo of the building's same cracked sign, same faded paint. But it was the article headline that made my stomach drop. Missing woman last seen at Hillview Inn, room 10, sealed following investigation. So tell me, have you ever had a creepy motel experience? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this story, please hit that like button, subscribe for more terrifying tales, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next adventure into the unknown. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there, especially when choosing your next overnight stay. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that gave me serious chills. A mystery that unfolds in the most unexpected ways, starting with a simple apartment ad. This isn't just a tale, it's a journey into the unsettling, and I can't wait to share it with you. It all began when I moved into the Glenmere Apartments. The ad sounded perfect, quiet complex, safe neighborhood, utilities included. And the price, a little too good to be true. honestly. But after months of crashing on a friend's couch, I figured I'd just hit one of those rare lucky breaks, you know when someone needs to ditch a lease fast. The place wasn't fancy, just a cozy living room, a small kitchenette, and a bedroom big enough for my essentials. But for me, it felt like pure luxury. My landlord, a gentleman named Mr. Pennington, handed over the keys with a polite nod. "Welcome to Glenmere," he said. "Apartment 47. It's one of the older units, but everything works perfectly. Just ignore the wiring in the walls if you hear anything strange. The pipes can echo a bit in this building." I laughed it off. Strange wiring. I'd lived in far worse. I wasn't easily spooked. The first couple of weeks were exactly what I'd hoped for. Quiet evenings, microwave meals, and late-night work calls. I even got into the habit of leaving the TV on low for background noise, a little comforting hum in the silence. But then, around the third week, things started to shift. It began with the phone. Not my cell phone, mind you, but this old, beige landline in the kitchen. It wasn't even plugged in when I moved in. But one morning, I noticed the cord had been neatly reattached to the wall jack. My first thought was that Mr. Pennington had popped in to fix something, though he hadn't mentioned it. That night, at exactly 12:07 a.m., it rang. The sound was sharp, shrill, and it absolutely shattered the quiet. I nearly dropped my coffee. For a few heart-stopping seconds, I just stared at it, my mind racing. Then, curiosity, or maybe a strange sense of duty, took over. I picked up, "Hello," just static at first. Then, faint and chilling, a voice whispered, "Why did you move into my home?" The line went dead. I stood there, frozen, listening to the frantic beat of my own heart. My initial thought, a prank, maybe a crossed wire, or some old line still connected from a previous tenant. I quickly unplugged the phone and, to be honest, I practically tossed it under the counter. I wasn't going to deal with that again. The next morning, I told Pennington about it. He looked genuinely surprised, a frown creasing his brow. "That line hasn't been active in years," he explained. "We had them disconnected after an incident. I'll have maintenance remove it right away." I didn't press him on what incident meant. I figured it was just some old building drama. But 2 nights later, the ringing came again. Same time, 12:07 a.m. This time, I didn't answer. I just lay there, eyes wide open in the dark, listening to that persistent, unsettling ring until it finally stopped. A few minutes later, an old, tarnished metal key, the kind with a tag almost completely worn away, slid out from under my bedroom door. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the faint number etched into its brass, 10. My mind immediately went back to an old article I'd found online about the Glenmere apartments. It was 12 years old, detailing the disappearance of a woman named Emily Carter, 28 years old, last seen checking into room 10. Suddenly, Mr. Pennington's casual mention of room 10 when showing me the apartment, and the incident he referred to, took on a terrifying new meaning. I remembered a single image attached to Emily Carter's case file, a police photo of her room's interior before it was sealed. The wallpaper behind the bed was torn in several places, revealing deep gouges in the drywalls, though someone had clawed at it from the inside. And there, written faintly in dust on the nightstand, were the words, "Help me find the door." That line had echoed in my head for days after reading it. Now, with this key in my hand, it felt like a direct message. I didn't sleep much that night. The key was heavy in my palm, a tangible link to a past I was inadvertently becoming a part of. The next day, I started digging. I went to the local library, pulled up old newspaper archives, and scoured online forums about the Glenmere apartments. What I found was a patchwork of whispers and rumors, stories of strange noises, unexplained cold spots, and former tenants abruptly moving out. But Emily Carter's case was the most prominent, still unsolved, still shrouded in mystery. The key felt like an invitation, or perhaps a desperate plea. I knew, deep down, that I couldn't ignore it. That night, after the 12:07 call came and went unanswered, I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have. I held the key, looking at the number 10, and a strange sense of resolve washed over me. I had to find out what happened to Emily Carter. I had to understand why this key had appeared and why her phone was ringing in my apartment. The next morning, I confronted Mr. Pennington. I showed him the key. His face went pale. "Where did you get that?" he stammered, his usual polite demeanor gone. I told him about the phone calls, about Emily Carter, and about the key appearing. He sighed, running a hand over his balding head. I thought it was over," he mumbled. He finally confessed that room 10 was still in the building, but it had been sealed off, disguised as a storage closet, after Emily's disappearance. He admitted that the building had a peculiar history, and that he himself had been trying to forget the strange occurrences tied to that room. He confirmed that Emily had left behind a diary, which the police had dismissed as the ramblings of a troubled young woman. But Pennington had kept a copy out of a morbid sense of responsibility. He brought it to me that afternoon. Reading it was like stepping into Emily's shoes. She wrote about feeling trapped, about whispers coming from the walls, about seeing strange shadows, and she mentioned a hidden door, a door she couldn't find, but knew was there, a door she believed held the key to her freedom, or perhaps her escape. Her last entry read, chillingly, "They're trying to stop me from finding the door. I can feel them getting closer. I need to get out." The words "help me find the door" echoed even louder now. This wasn't just a random message in dust. It was a desperate plea from the past. And I realized, with a jolt, that Emily wasn't just asking for help to find a physical door out of her room. She was asking for help to find a way out of whatever invisible prison she was in. This wasn't just a ghost story. It was a human tragedy trapped in time. Armed with Emily's diary and the mysterious key, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't just walk away. Emily's voice, whispering from the past, was too strong to ignore. The truth about Glenmere Apartments and what truly happened in room 10 was waiting to be uncovered. And I, for some reason, had been chosen to find it. This journey has just begun, and it's already more twisted and mysterious than I could have ever imagined. What do you think happened to Emily? What does the door really mean? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to follow along as I dive deeper into this mystery, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to share the next chapter with you all. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. My phone wasn't even plugged in. This time, I didn't answer. But I swear, I could hear the faint click of the receiver lifting itself, followed by a whisper that seemed to slide across the apartment. It was faint at first, then clearer, like someone was pacing back and forth in the other room, dragging their fingertips along the wall. I tried to tell myself I was just imagining it, sleep deprivation, stress from the move, whatever. But as I crept toward the bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The phone unplugged and silent just seconds ago was swaying slightly on its hook, as though someone had just let it go. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called my sister, who lives 2 states away. She's a total skeptic, always has been. When I told her what happened, she just laughed. "You're just tired, Nathan. It's probably noise from the pipes or your neighbors." I really wanted to believe her. I did, until she said, "You mentioned you're in 407, right?" "Yeah, why?" There was a pause on her end. "Didn't something bad happen in that building years ago? I swear I saw something about it online once." That was all it took. My hands were shaking as I typed it into the search bar. A quick search brought up a local news clipping from 9 years ago. "Tenant found dead in Glenmere Apartment 407. Police investigate unusual circumstances." The article was short. A man named David Lang had been found deceased after neighbors reported strange noises and a phone ringing late at night. There were no signs of forced entry. The cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest, but one line at the very end caught my eye. Asterisk authorities noted deep scratches along the inside of the apartment's drywall, though it's unclear if they were related to the incident. Asterisk, my heart sank. Scratches. That night, the call came again. I didn't pick up. I just sat there, in bed, watching the red numbers on my alarm clock tick past midnight. At exactly 12:07 a.m., The phone rang. Once, twice, then silence. A minute passed. Then, my cell phone vibrated on the nightstand. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was the same voice, distorted, whispering through a veil of static. "Why did you move into my home?" My mouth went dry. "Who is this?" "You should have stayed away," it hissed. "You opened the line again." I was completely bewildered. "What are you talking about?" The call connects when someone listens. I froze. The line filled with a faint crackling sound, and behind it, I heard something else, a sound that was rhythmic and just ... wrong. It was scratching, coming from inside the wall, right next to my bed. "Stop," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The voice ignored me completely. "Do you hear it?" He never left. He waits in the wiring. The call ended with a sharp, final click. I leaped out of bed, flicked on every single light in the apartment, and grabbed my bag. I didn't even stop to lock the door. I drove straight to a 24-hour diner down the street and just sat there, nursing a cold coffee until sunrise. When I finally went back, the door to 407 was slightly ajar. Inside, everything looked normal, except for one thing. The phone was gone. Not just the receiver, the entire unit. Even the wall jack had been ripped out, leaving only a dark, empty hole where it used to be. I immediately called Pennington, the building manager. He answered on the second ring. "You said maintenance would take the phone out," I said, my voice shaking. "Someone already did." He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "No one went into your apartment last night, Mr. Hale. I don't even have a key anymore." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He sighed heavily. "That unit was supposed to stay empty. You weren't meant to get that lease. There was a mix-up in the system. I thought you were moving into 307. I had to swallow hard before I could ask. So, who was in 407 before me?" He hesitated. "No one. Not since Lang died. We sealed the unit." I hung up the phone. "That was 3 weeks ago. I moved out the very next day. Left most of my stuff behind. I just couldn't stay. But sometimes, always around midnight, I still get those calls. Unknown number. Last night, I finally worked up the courage to answer. And through the static, a voice, soft and broken, said, "You can't leave the line open forever." Then, I heard it again. That same faint scratching, but this time, it sounded closer. Much closer. I hung up before I could hear what came next. Thanks for sticking with me through this story. It's one of those things that just stays with you. You know, if you enjoy tales that send a chill down your spine, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more to share. Stay safe out there, and see you in the next video.